How did y'all do it so good in Thomasville?
The schools were very interested in how everything was going to work out. And we got very good cooperation.
I think Thomasville did a really good job. They didn't really want the marches and the demonstrations.
But if you look at sports and what they have to offer, because all those people on that field was a team. But we knew it was in the minds of a lot of people, it won't work. And we had to show them that it will work.
They were demonstrating to our adult community and to the teenage community every Friday night the way we were supposed to do business. And in our community, we're not without difficulties, we're not without problems, but we have to continue working on them every day, just like we did. That was our job.
The Supreme Court ruled in 1954 that black and white schools were to integrate, and the schools in Thomasville had gradually begun the process. The final piece to integration was putting the high schools together. So Magnolia and Central formed the Central High School Yellow Jackets, now known as Thomas County Central. Douglas High would join Thomasville High to make the red and gold wearing Thomasville High School Bulldogs. Many people, both black and white communities, worked together to make this happen. One decision that did help integration was school choice. This allowed black students to enroll in white schools. Jim Hughes was an assistant football coach for Thomasville High School during this era.
That helped to expose the public to the fact that white and black kids were going to play together and play successfully. That first year I had a senior named Lloyd Austin. Lloyd Austin is a retired 4-star general in the U.S. Army, but he was a great locker room presence, and he was a great guy in the classroom. And students, as you're saying, they had to pay a price too, and they helped.
Jim Hughes was named head football coach for the Thomasville High School Bulldogs in 1970. The schools were supposed to integrate in the fall, but Hughes, the coaching staff, and the football team integrated during spring practice in 1970.
That changed the whole dynamics of everything we were going to do. Instead of me beginning to plan a spring practice in March of the team that I had been an assistant coach with for the last several years, now we were faced with putting the staffs together, putting the teams together, and having a productive spring practice so that we could, we would actually be doing the spring practice work months before we actually put the schools together. So football was a focal point for us. We had to prove that it could be done.
I was the science teacher over at Susan H. Dunlap Elementary School, and I was one of 4 blacks chosen to help integrate the total 7th grade students for the Thomasville City Schools. We came in with the mindset that we were going to make this thing happen. And it was a very cohesive group, and we worked together to make it. Well, I taught science, as I said, and we had, everybody worked together to make the system one of the best as it is and was in the state of Georgia.
When the school system integrated with the teachers, Miss Opal Lewis, I guess you know her.
The late Miss Opal.
Miss Opal Lewis. And we found out we were kinfolk, so that helped us out all the way along.
Yeah, cousin.
Parents for Ward, so we went off. That's true. So we went in. That's the way we introduced ourselves, cousin. And we both in social studies, and that helped too. So, you can't tell you, yes, we are. I was social studies teacher for 35 years, and it worked.
You know, there's never been a time that I can recall, and like I say, I've been here 46 years, that our faculty members didn't get along. We got along well, everybody, you know, and young people saw that. We didn't have any stuff like many places where they had 2 high schools in the same time, with 3 with Brookwood, and they couldn't even walk the same side of the street. I think too, we can't forget the role that our students played.
Oh, yeah.
Now, we came in as adults and we was going to set the example for them, but they had to carry out that plan. Regardless of what you told those young men getting prepared for spring practice, if they didn't get on that field, and you all had to establish that from the coaching staff standpoint, you had to be living, live, active role model. And the children had to see us as adults get along, and they were going to do it. Well, we didn't have the support at the church because we didn't go to church together. We didn't have it in the social because we didn't do that. But from Monday to Friday, we expected those students to walk the hall together, sit in classes together, and be respectful. But they was following great leadership.
You can catch him or you can leave him alone. Go call that sergeant. Go call that sergeant. Let him down, lose the traffic. Let him down, lose the traffic.
Many other cities in the South had significant racial issues at this time. Thomasville, Georgia had many great leaders on and off the field that guided this community.
The schools were very interested in how everything was going to work out. And we got very good cooperation. And it started from our principal, Mr. Johnny J. Jones, who was a very intelligent man. He prepped his teachers and everybody else about the coming together. And that was one of the things I wanted to plug in.
But for me, as a rookie head coach, the most important person at the table was James Bryant. He made it possible for me to be successful. And if he were less of a man than he was, he could have undermined me in 1,000 different ways. And in the 13 years we worked together, I never saw a second of any kind of behavior, except everything he did was to try to make Thomasville High School successful.
Coach Bryant was one of my coaches and teachers at Douglas High School, my product of Douglas High School. He was assistant coach when I was there. I was one of his pupils. He taught me how to think, how to get along with people. And I want to put this in interjection. Coach Bryant was much older, more mature than I was. And that made the difference in his situation, thinking. I learned something from him. My wife told me, you better prep yourself ready. The Lord had a plan for me, but I didn't have, that was not my plan, what happened. But the Lord had a plan for me on down the line. And now I am reaping the benefits from all those plans Coach Bryant and E.C. Williams had for us. That man was some kind of man.
Coach James Bryant got me into coaching in Thomasville City Schools. If it had not been for him and his foresightedness, I would not have been in the position.
When the boys didn't understand or didn't really appreciate what was going on sometimes, then he would help them. He would tell them, you know, we'll get through this, we'll work through this. And he knew what he could do, and he knew that he had the knowledge, and he was a good listener. He had a lot of guys that came over from Douglas to Thomasville High who were good football players. And you can tell this because they integrated in 70. And by 1973, they had a championship football team.
The 1971-72 school year was trying for the football teams of both schools. Central tied one game and lost the rest. Thomasville High won 8 games but had difficulties. The Bulldogs' spring practice in 1972 had only 29 players.
It was not all a walk in the park. Our 71-72 year, we had a lot of kids who were dissatisfied with life at the high school, and we lost a lot of players.
William Andrews walked off from the team, and my husband told him, "You have too much talent and too much ability. You're going to be great one day." So he came back, and he was great.
From the coaching staff, it rubbed off on our department chairs. And our department chairs ran off on the people in their respective departments. But I still think, gentlemen, it came through our athletes. Because if had there been any breakdown that the community could have seen on Friday, the Tuesday and Friday, Saturday, we were playing basketball.
Right.
That, hey, we got those guys sitting there. They came to the game religiously to see it not work.
I don't mean that if you have a good football team, you have a great school. But they were demonstrating to our adult community and to the teenage community every Friday night the way we were supposed to do business.
But I can tell you one thing from an administrative standpoint, Coach. You have a good football season.
Yep.
You do have a good school.
Yeah.
Coach Hughes, he wanted to make sure that the wives and everybody would be involved. So many times we would get together. We would have after parties after the games. It was pretty cool if they won, but it wasn't so cool that they didn't. But we had it anyway.
Things got better in the 1972 football season. Thomas County Central's first black quarterback, Billy Joe Copeland, was slated to start the first game of the season. Poppa D promised to shave his mustache if the Jackets won this game. The next pep rally, the mustache was gone, and something else suddenly vanished also.
And we got word from some of the Booster Club members that you better start packing your box. You won't start them at Thomas County Central, at Central at the time. And we were kind of young, like Charlie said, you know, you won't tell me this. Well, start Billy Joe. Introduce him. And man, you could hear Rat walking on cotton. I mean, no sound in the football stadium whatsoever, everybody. But by the third quarter, midway the third quarter, they had stopped trying to say Billy Joe Copeland. They was calling him BJ. Went on down to the field house to make sure nobody messed with this kid, blah, blah, blah. Because his mother had gotten word that it wasn't a good idea for him to start. And we went there, and one of the same fellows that say the coach better not start him, he was over there hugging him. Hugging him. And, you know, so things like that. Because the performance of the kids, they didn't, you know, when Billy Joe threw it to a wide receiver, he didn't know he wasn't supposed to catch it. He just caught the ball. And we just, you know, just had a good time.
And he was throwing to Joe Frank Burns Sr.
I could make a living doing that.
Central fielded one of their best football teams ever with an elite defense, paving their way to the state semifinal. Both football teams were getting better as fans flocked to the stands to see them play. William Andrews was running past or over everybody as Thomasville High School won the state title in 73 and 74. The 1974 team was picked by President Gerald Ford as national champions. With a mixture of coaches in the studio, wins and losses naturally come up. The Jackets' first win over the Bulldogs in 1976 did get mentioned by Coach Ward.
I got one. Jim might not want to hear it.
Oh, Charlie.
Oh, I got to tell this, you know.
It doesn't have to be.
You got to. First time Central ever defeated the Bulldogs.
No, you don't have to tell it.
But you know, I had to go through that when I was a head coach at Magnolia, and Magnolia had never defeated Douglas.
But none of those people are here making crap out of you.
No, there's someone still around here. I think somebody ran a little quarterback sneak, I believe.
More than once.
Once, the little boy named 143 pounds, little Willie Costa, stood him up. After that game, I don't think any county folks went home. First time. That was something. Sorry about that, Jim.
But no, really, truly, you all.
It made us better. Made everybody better.
Didn't do me any.
Oh, there she is. Oh, you got revenge. You know how the coaches are. You beat me now, I'm going to get you next year.
I'm a little worked up that you brought that game up.
Oh, you got all these coaches and administrators here.
Particularly because I've had two officials who were on that crew who told me that quarterback sneak scored. So neither one of us were standing down there, so we don't know.
I have one in particular, and it goes back to some of the things that we've been saying as far as how you maintain your composure. I had a parent, white guy came to me and he jumped all over me about not playing his son, and I didn't know his son didn't get an opportunity to play, and he jumped all over me, and I just sat there and I said, okay. So the next 3 or 4 days after we got back to school, we practiced. I was at Douglas Middle School at the time. So I told his son, I said, okay, son, you're gonna start. And he played offensive line, which was one of the position I was coaching. And this big guy from Valdosta was eating him alive. The kid came in to him and said, Coach, get me out of there. I said, what's the matter? He said, I can't do anything with him. I said, you sure? I said, I'll tell you what you do for me. Go tell your daddy. He did. He went and told his daddy. After the game, the dad came to me and said, I want to apologize. Yeah. And I said, for what? He said, I was wrong. And I looked at him, and these were the words I said to him. He who is without sin, let him cast the first stone. I turned around and walked away.
It's good that all those students you and Andy whipped during the years, I think the statute of limitations has run out on all that. Two things.
See, Charlie, the head of his house, so his wife, the boss. Just like all the rest of it. You can talk all that jive you want.
He wear the pants, but she make the rules.
I got a story I want to tell while Charlie's thinking about it.
No, I ain't.
He's going to fight the War Department. We had a reunion of our 73 and 74 teams a few years ago, and I'm just leaning up against the wall, and one of those kids that played on those teams, he's had a military career. He's retired now from the military. He was a heck of a soldier. Coach, he said, all that time, he said, I really hated you. and that's not exactly what he said, but we'd have to bleep it out. I said, whoa. I said, I thought I was winning that popularity contest all that time. He just laughed. I said, Coach, it took me till after basic training to get to where I didn't hate you anymore.
And this was a little bit after things had rolled on. I had a guy named Guy McIntyre and Bubba Rumble. And I had given them this speech and said, all right, guys, let me tell you, we're a family and you got to roll together. And we went to play Bainbridge. Bainbridge had these big guys, boy, they chewed the back and spit and all this kind of stuff. And had a little quarterback named Jerry Murray. And Jerry ran the ball and, boy, the guys from Bainbridge just put him upside down, almost took his clothes off. And I saw everybody. I said, what in the devil is going on over there? And I went, Bubba Rumble and Guy McIntyre back to back, taking on the whole team. I went and said, guys, are you crazy? What are you doing? He said, Coach, you told us that we were family, and we got to stick together. That's the thing that made the system work.
You can catch him or you can leave him alone. Yeah. You can catch him or you can leave him alone. Yeah. Go call that sergeant. Yeah. Go call that sergeant. Yeah. Tell him time to
A rich legacy comes from the men and women who went through integration. We cannot thank them enough. Today, we can honor them by learning about the good times and the tough times.
There's an old African proverb that reads in part, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with others. Go as a team. And so for those of us who really want to accomplish anything, we do it best that way, not as individuals, but as a team.
And then there's another thing, all we're talking about, we need to go back and start reteaching the parents, the young parents, how to become parents, adults. You know, it's not going to ever happen, Holly. Everything's not going to be perfect. So we can't stop doing it. So that's one of the things I want to stay with the scriptures. Can't go wrong.
I have friends in the Atlanta area, Florida. I'm from Florida originally. And the question that they were asking me was, how did y'all do it so good in Thomasville? How did it work? What magic did you guys have?
Didn't have any magic.
Exactly.
But we had the challenge to make it work rather than make excuses for it not working.
Exactly. So if we can teach them, say, okay, hey, I might not like the way Frank looked. He's ugly. But I'm going to tell Frank, I'm just teasing Frank. I'm going to tell Frank, hey, I respect you for who you are,
right,
and what you're doing for me. Because if I take into context what you're telling me, I can always learn something from you.
That's the same thing we taught in early 70s. We have to teach it now. It's just different faces. And our worth really won't be until after we leave here. Because our worth will not be the life in which we live. It will be the lives we touch while we live.
Football plays a large role in the way this community sees itself. Thomasville, Georgia has had many state titles, NFL football players, and a Heisman Trophy winner. History allows for what if. What if James Bryant did not talk William Andrews back to football?
And my husband told him, you have too much talent and too much ability. You're going to be great one day.
What if Bryant refused to work so well with Jim Hughes? How would integration have worked then?
The most important person at the table was James Bryant. Everything he did was to try to make Thomasville High School successful.
What if Coach Ward Sr. was head coach at Central their winless year? Would he have turned away from football? Would his son Junior have turned away from football?
My wife told me, you better prep yourself ready. The Lord had a plan for me, but I didn't have, that was not my plan, what happened. And now I am reaping the benefits from all those plans.
We are built on the character of those who came before us. We thank them for their dignity and sacrifice, and we all, no matter our race or school, stand on their sturdy shoulders.